So hello guys, this is first class on CSS. So what is CSS? CSS basically means cascading style sheets. So CSS helps add design and this kind of flair to a web page. So without CSS, your website will look quite boring. Like just like this website without CSS. But if I should add a little bit of styling to this web page, you will see that it looks neat and good as you can see. So without CSS, it will look like how it was before. With CSS, it will look neat like this. So why it is called cascading style sheet? Because it derives its name from cascade. So cascading means moving from top to bottom. So moving from top down to the bottom. The CSS follows this rule of moving from top to bottom in its design. So it starts from the top of the code. So you have a pile of CSS code. Let me show you. So you have a pile of CSS code. The computer starts from the top of this code. Computer starts from the top of this code, going down to the bottom of the code to read this code. So the latest code you give about something, or the latest value or styling you give about something, that's what computer will take. Let's say you give font size here as 2 pixels, then you come again and put font size again and give 200 pixels. Computer will basically take this new one that's being given and override this one. So as it is going from top to bottom, is reading. Once it comes to this one, font size 2 pixels, I miss another font size 2 pixels for the same element, it overrides this first one and takes the second one. So that's the cascading for you. I'll be using it a lot in CSS to help us determine what we are writing in our code. So another thing with CSS is that it saves a lot of time. You can use CSS to style up to like different parts of different web pages, just with one CSS file. So before you have to use a normal inline CSS, normal style attributes to style, but now with CSS you can style multiple web pages with just one CSS file, making it quite easy for everyone in this industry. So that's all for CSS introduction. So we'll be moving down to the CSS. Okay, let's start from the types of CSS we have. So we have three types of CSS. So we have the external CSS, the internal, and we have the inline CSS. So I'll be starting with the inline CSS, and the inline CSS is the one we already basically know. So the inline CSS is the one basically use the style attributes, like I've taught in my HTML class. It's the one we use the style attribute to give. We use the style attributes, then we can basically now put any styling we want depending on what we want to do. So I did it in the HTML class. You can go and look for the style, HTML styles. So this inline CSS, and it has the most specificity. Yeah, so that's for it. It has the most specificity. I'll still be talking about it still in this. I'll still talking about specificity, but it's being in another class. So we have the internal CSS. So this internal CSS works with the same HTML file, and we just have to create a tag called style tag. So we have the style tag, and between the style tag we can now put our styling. So, and we have the last one, that's the external, which is you normally just create an external style sheet and start designing your website. So we have CSS syntax here. So we have the first HTML CSS syntax. So we have syntax of, we have the selector, then after the selector we put a curly bracket and another curly bracket, and we now have property name and value. So this can be a lot to take in, but we'll be doing this gradually. So the syntax in writing a CSS styling, we have the selector. So the selector means the element you want to style. You have to tell computer, hey, this is the element I want to style. So we either use ID or element selector. So I'll be still discussing that one later, but we talk about syntax now. So syntax is, let's say we want to style the body, we have to call the body as an element. Then we put two curly brackets. So you hold shift and press the curly bracket button, and two curly, and the opening and closing curly brackets coming. Then you press your enter key so you can create something like this, or if you don't want to, you cannot do it. But for easy writing of your code and readability, you write it like, if you want your code to be readable, you write it like this. Then in between here, we put the property name. So we have the property name of your code, of your styling, and we now have the value. So we have property and we now have the value. So the property can be the height. Let's say if you want to style a human being, we want to give it a property, his property of height. Then what will be the value of his height? His height can be 180 centimeter tall, 192 2 meter tall. So that's just it. So the property there is the height, the value there is the height, the, like, the length of his height in units. So let's say we want to give font size or want to give color. We have color. Then after the color name, after the property name, we have to put a semicolon, a colon. You can see a colon and a semicolon. Then in between both of them, you can now put the value you want. So I want to put color of yellow. So putting this color of yellow, I'll go into the web page to refresh so I can see what we did. So as I've refreshed, something went wrong, so I'll just be nothing actually went wrong, but that's the same task. I'll just be creating a new file to just start over, so I cannot spoil this project. So that's the syntax. So that syntax mostly, comes for the external and internal. Just exactly I'm writing it in the external, that's how you write it in the internal. So for our next class, I'll be talking about how to link, and I'm talking about selectors. Yeah, so I'll be discussing the selectors.